Morning, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Mic Drop. Today we're going to continue along in a series that is exposing the corruption of Middlebury Community Schools out of Middlebury, Indiana, which I have decided to aptly rename the Middlebury Entitlement School Systems, or as it's abbreviated now, the M.E.S.S. So, a couple of updates before I get into today's topic, things I want to tell you. Some really exciting things are happening, at least for me. But with regards to the truth advocacy, things are in motion now that are very, very good for those who may feel like their truth has always been silenced, especially in that school system. I'm not going to give you all the details yet, but I am going to give you a little bit of a sample. Okay. Next week, on June 20th, there is another school board meeting. They have them every 2 weeks. And I know you're thinking, probably now, Malahan, we already know that the school board meetings are not the safest place to share our truth. Like, they shut people down, they interrupt people, they don't give them their 3 minutes. Like, why are we still mentioning the school board? I'll tell you why. Middlebury Entitlement Schools has made it nearly impossible for you to feel comfortable sharing your truth in the only environment that they'll allow. Again, I hate to keep making these references, but because Mike Ney was such an amazing social studies teacher, or social sciences, the comparisons between how past totalitarian regimes and how Middlebury Community Schools is acting, to me, I'm not saying that you have to believe it, but to me it just seems that it draws just a lot of comparisons, and that scares me a little bit. Today's topic is going to be very particular about what kind of manipulation and falsehoods that are out there, because we're going to talk about data and data manipulation. Next week, I tell you what, tune in tomorrow for information on what next week's school board meeting is going to look like from my perspective. Some of you have asked if I'm even going to be there. Well, that was at graduation, wasn't I? Stay tuned. I'll come back to that one tomorrow. Last thing I'll say before I get into today's topic, a couple of people asked me, they're like, Malahan, the timing of when your mic drops seems very, very specific. Is there a reason for that? And yeah, there is. Like with most jovial professionals, when they choose to do something that may appear to be, I don't know, maybe somewhat childlike in nature, but adult in purpose. And I know that can be confusing for some, but it's the difference between, like, maybe going and talking to a kid about a movie that they saw in the theater recently, and you talking to them from an adult perspective, or you talk at them from a perspective that may be just as equally interested in what it is that they went to see. Like Spider-Man, in the multiverse right now. I'm a huge, comic lore junkie. I can't say I'm a comic nerd because I don't collect. But with true symbolism, the time that the mics drops, and the mic drop will drop, was chosen to be 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll tell you that it's going to stay that way because I'm not in the one of control when it drops. Right now, who dictates when the mic drops drop is Northridge High School. Why, do you ask? Why would I give them that power? Because it makes a point. And because it's fun. But it also makes a statement. The reason why the mic drops will drop at 3:45 Eastern until further notice is because that is when the last bell of Northridge High School rings. At 3:45 Eastern, there is dismissal. It made sense in my mind that at the exact same second that Northridge High School would lose complete control over the student body inside, because it's time to leave, it's time to dismiss, that at that moment students and families and community members of Middlebury also have a choice right away to hear something that is definitely not going to be promoted by the school, probably because it makes them look bad. So some of my kiddos have gotten pretty inventive, and they've started calling it fifth block, because there's 4 blocks. They're block 4 in a day, and some of them, when we've had traditional 7 class days, they've called me the last block. I just want you guys to have access to the truth as soon as possible, because I know going in and working in that building, your access to the truth is controlled. And I want to be the first ones that gives you control back the minute that your school day ends. So that's why the mic drop will drop at 3:45 Eastern until Northridge High School changes what time their bell rings to dismiss for class for the day, and then the mic drops will start dropping at that time. And it will continue to drop at that specific time until the corruption at Middlebury Community Schools has been held accountable. I mean, I don't think that's any different than what the schools are trying to do with us. So, speaking of accountability, we're going to go ahead and transition into today's mic drop topic, data and data manipulation. So some of you guys have been asking me about this one, about, how has, Middlebury Entitlement Schools, changed the data or mess with the data to make themselves look better, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I have a wealth of knowledge on how Middlebury Entitlement Schools changes their data to make themselves look better. If I were to say anything about why they change data that doesn't involve me, it becomes less of a mic truth and becomes more of a I did not have a hand in this experience to me, so this is something I'm sharing that I didn't experience completely myself. I like to share mic drops that are true to my experience. They're just my truth, what I experienced while I was going there. So that's why I'll tell you guys all these videos. I want you to make your own decisions. I want you to come to your own conclusions based on a truth that has been presented to you that's different than the school's false truth that they continue to push out. And my call to action is for you to think critically and not just listen to the recirculated, controlling type of information that comes through normally in the school systems. And you're asking me probably, Malahan, what does that look like? Okay, here's what it looks like. I'll give you a story from my personal experience, and then I will let you guys draw your own conclusions onto the capacity in which Middlebury Entitlement Schools can change the data to make them look better and get what they want. In January of 2022, that's right. It's been a long couple of years. When I went on leave for the semester that I had taken due to personal tragedy, and then I came back the following school year, and I sat down and they presented me with the new norms and yada, 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 and all that stuff. It was that January, after that was presented, that I knew that I could no longer work there. During that time, because Middlebury Entitlement Schools had already decided that they wanted to move me along for whatever reason, the things in which we as counselors and staff members otherwise too, the way in which we were being evaluated was changing. The things that were being data points that showed what a great job you're doing in your position. They were changing. And they were changing without me being there. And were handed to me as these are the changes. We voted on these while you were out. Deal with it. And here's how I knew that the data was going to be manipulated against me. During, from the minute that semester started in August through October, I had been asking and pleading with every fiber of my being, please, can we sit down and talk as a team of counselors with some mediation and some people that are in charge that can help people keep their opinions respectful and keep their thoughts professional. I begged for that for years, starting from the moment that Steph Preem decided she wanted to treat me like I was less than human, which was, I don't know, it must come from that office or something, because Steph Preem had the office right next to me, and then when she left, Kelsey Tote took that office, and immediately, maybe there's something written in the stone that it's like, make person to the right of you feel like they're not human. Like, that's rule one of working in that office, because that was true of my experience for the two people that were in there over 8 years. During that October, there were meetings that were being scheduled with Mr. Wood, Summer Runyon. Again, Mr. Wood is the principal of the high school. Summer Runyon is the guidance director of the high school, and individual counselors. And what I was led to believe, which is different than what I was told, because you're never going to catch corrupt politicians in telling you to do something. You're going to find them implying that you do something. Or they're going to try to lead you to a conclusion they want you to figure out without telling you what you should believe. That's corruption. The difference in what it looks like and feels like, at least to me, is someone that would accept your truth regardless of their own truth and just listen and empower you for having a truth, period. So when it was my turn to be called in for that meeting, I thought these were individual meetings that were being met with counselors to discuss the corruption that had been going on the team. And I came to find out that that was not the case. And this is when I knew that the data was going to start to be manipulated to be used against me to turn me into some kind of thing that can be evaluated poorly so that they had justification to fire me, because they couldn't. Every single year going up into my year of personal tragedy, I had the highest marks that you could get in their evaluation system. I was been rated highly effective for, 5 years after that. You know, from the minute I started, like 3 years in and then 5 years on, it was. And I even said when I came back, when I fought back from the personal tragedy to get back to a place where I could be a counselor for the kids again, I knew I was not on my A game, and I told that to the schools. I said, hey, I just want you to know I fought through more than what I have ever read about people trying to fight through to get back to a place of emotional stability so that they could do their calling. It's not easy. One day I'll probably share with you what that process was like. That's going to be more of a Mike's Drops as kind of a personal experience from my past on how it went. But I'm not gonna, I have nothing to hide. So if you guys are curious about more particulars about this and you would like me to do more into this particular topic, let me know in the comments. The comments will always be on, despite what Gantman seems to be able to try to come up with in his own head. Which I love, because it just shows, when you have someone from Middlebury Entitlement Schools comment on your posts about the corruption at Middlebury Entitlement Schools and they don't mention a single thing about, hey, thank you for sharing your truth, even if they don't agree with it. Hey, thank you for sharing your truth. If you notice on my videos, I'll call this out real quick. If you notice in my videos that I've made, some of them, almost all of them have, 90 to 100% like rate, most of them 100%. But if you look back, there's one person that has disliked the majority of my videos. And I've had one person comment negatively on my videos. And it's really not even been about the videos and the content themselves. It's been about me. So I can't help but think that I don't know who you are, Gant Man, but you smell of Middlebury, and that's all I'll say. So for data manipulation, what had started to happen was the way that we counselors were evaluated was changing. New rules in place, like which door you're supposed to go out of, was going to be a reflection on how well you were as a professional. Last time I got graded on which door I walked out of as a professional, I was in kindergarten, where they showed me the door that I needed to walk out when the day was over. And I followed completely. I was this many. One of the things that had been transpiring up to that meeting was an evaluation change in how the counselors being evaluated. The year right before all my personal tragedy hit, they were already trying to change the data and the way it was calculated so that I would begin to look bad as a counselor. Only, like you saw with graduation, and like you're going to see with the school board meeting next week, I can do it regardless of you. I can find a way to make just as many connections and meetings and discussions with my kids that you can, and I don't have to do it your way. You just want me to do it your way, because if I'm not doing it your way, you have justification to say he's not a team player. Well, if the team had what was best for kids in mind, I'd be a team player. When the team starts to put what the school's best interest is in mind, that's when you start changing rules on how that person is evaluated so you can start to try to fire them. What's my proof, you ask, Mollahan? Well, I don't need any because it's the mic truth, but I will tell you a truth regardless. And I'm not going to share this person's name because they told me this in confidence. So I will find my best way to say the truth without revealing who's the one that person. It's going to be from someone who worked in the counseling office with me during the time frames in which I worked in the counseling office. Okay. We have support members that work in the counseling office with us along the counselors. We have a registrar, we have a secretary, and we've generally had a dual credit coordinator. In the past, we've also had kind of a social worker position. We had it with Mr. Slaybaugh, but that position left. So, regardless, it was one of the support staff members of the Middlebury Community Schools Guidance Department, since they won't change their name to school counseling. One day I asked this person, because at this point I was not in the office. I was at a place where I had to be somewhere else in the building to serve my kids because of the toxicity that existed amongst the corruption in the front office was palpable. For those of you who don't know the word palpable, you can almost feel it as if it were tangible, real. You could touch it. It was permeating all around. Imagine walking into a room that filled with corruption and you could taste it or smell it or feel it, or your skin gets all crawly. That kind of stuff. That's how it felt to me to work in my own office, where I had done my life's work for the better part of 10 years at that point. Regardless, conversation that happened with her, and I mean, we the only male we've ever had employed in the office other than me for the last 10 years has been Mr. Slaybaugh. So if I say her, it's not really going to narrow it down. I asked a very simple question when someone came to find me and asked how I was doing things. That's the vagueness I'm going to keep it, because here's the specificity. They wanted to know how many times I was reaching out to my children, how I was doing it, why I was doing, well, maybe not the why, but, and I asked, why do you want to know that? Like what, like for the collections of data, why do you want to know that? Like, clearly I have nothing to hide, so by all means, but like, what's the purpose? And it wasn't really given to me clearly. It wasn't really given to me much at all. And I'm going to tell you guys something. As a you know, a master's degree holding counselor and practitioner of counseling for 10 years, you get pretty good at being able to read people when they're not telling you the whole truth. And I don't try to pry for the whole truth if it's not any of my business. like rarely. In fact, you can ask any child that I've ever counseled in the history of the last decade, and they should tell you, unless I made a mistake and screwed up along the way, which I will freely admit. I have said to every single child, I will never make you talk about something that you don't want to talk about. And that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to pressure you into revealing your truth so I can find some corruption that exists in your life. That's not my job. My job is you, your safety, your academic learning, your individuality. And if I have to force you to do something that you don't want to do for your own safety, that's difficult. And you have to be able to believe in the person doing something for you against what you would want, that they would end up being something that was good. Now, for me, that was rarely the case. So when she came to me and talked to me and kind of asked that, I asked why. And there really wasn't a lot of answers that were given back. So then I formed my own conclusions and I asked her directly, and I watched her nonverbal communication to see if anything pinged. And so this is what I asked her. I said, why are they collecting this data? What's the purpose? The response I got was, because we are. Okay. Why are you coming here when I literally have students waiting to meet with me and want this information from me now like it's a work stoppage issue? Like I have to put kids aside to make this happen. And then, of course, the response came back, well, you've been putting what we wanted you to do aside for so long for the kids that we're demanding it now. Well, I'm not going to move the stuff that I need to do to help the children that I'm literally hired to serve because you have political machinations to make the school look better or get more money. It's never going to happen. And thankfully, this person was a messenger. They weren't someone that was, caught. So I generally try to do my best to determine whether or not is someone standing on their own truth or someone is representing someone else's truth. Both are equally important to me in my eyes. But my ability to ask someone about their truth is limited if it's someone else's truth. Just like you guys right now are probably getting questions like, oh my God, what happened to Malahan? And probably a pretty good representation of the overall stuff that happened to Malahan. But if you came and talked to me directly, you would get the personal stuff that you wouldn't get for someone talking on my behalf. It's just the nature of how communication works. So I looked at her in the eyes and I asked very clearly something that I knew she didn't want to answer. And I said, can you look at me in the eye and tell me that they're not trying to collect this data to use against me to show that I'm not doing things the way that everyone else is doing so that they could fire me, ? Yeah, I'm that bold in asking my questions. Because that's how long the corruption had gone on. Why do you think I wasn't in my office at the time when we were having this conversation? Why do you think I wasn't even in the same area of the building around the toxicity that was there? I'm trying to get away from you guys so I can do my job because you've made it so inhospitable to be an individual on your team that it just crushes spirits. And when I asked her that, she looked down. I did not get a response. I did not get an answer. In true professional fashion, I was not told yes or no whether or not my question was valid. So you read what people don't say instead. And through further questions, and those questions were a little more direct, I came to the realization that she was here to try to collect the data pieces only that made me look bad as a counselor with their new evaluations. They didn't care about the data that I was having with kids that was successful. They didn't care about the fact that I could reach more children and talk to them in a given day than they could sitting behind their fortresses of solitude in their offices. I chose to leave my office and go out with the children. Apparently I did it so much they had to limit what door I was leaving. But at that moment I told the person, I said, hey, I don't blame you. I understand the position that you've been put in. And so I'm going to give you the information that you would like. I don't want this to be a poor reflection on you or our working relationship. I understand that you are being basically ordered to do this. So I gave her the info, and that was it. And sure enough, by the time the evaluation came around that October, They were getting ready to use whatever that had been reported on me as the very first nail in a coffin to showing that I am an inept counselor, or I should not be a counselor. I didn't have a negative evaluation yet. And so they had to try to come up with stuff to create one to try to make me look bad. That's the depths of the corruption that Middlebury Community Schools will go into for data manipulation, just to get one person that they don't want out of a position that they don't want them in anymore. And I'll ask you this. You guys are very intelligent and critically analytical thinkers now. Hopefully, I'm going to ask you this question. If they're able to do that tiny bit of manipulation of the numbers in order to start making their employees look bad on paper so they have justification to fire them, what kind of misinformation are they reporting down to the state on the GR report about our graduates, about your kids? What about the bullying percentages? What about reports of staff abuse? What about reports of bullying? Where's all that information? Where's all that data? That's data you probably don't want people to look at. And I'm going to stand pretty strongly on that because of the overwhelming amount of people that have reached out to me since this whole thing started, telling me how many times that they have tried to reach out to Middlebury Community Schools to ask what was going on, and they've been blocked. So here's a statistic I'm going to leave you guys with. And go ahead and ask your friends, ask your people that are involved in this if you'd like, and then ask the school systems themselves. You can't because they'll block you. Every single day I wake up and I check my phone to see if I have any messages either for the mic drop or on Facebook or something where a kid reaching out to me, or just generally anything like we do. There is a story of a former graduate of Middlebury Community Schools who has posted on their own websites and on Middlebury Community Schools website the hashtag Stand with Malahan. They don't agree with the way that you treated me, and so they choose their constitutional right to say their truth on the only website that you'll allow it, because God forbid you should make your board meetings any more welcoming. That's definitely a safe place. We're going to do a mic drop on sarcasm at some point. It's just not today. What else has Middlebury Community Schools been doing in the decade that I've been there and prior that has been manipulating the data to, one, get rid of people that they don't want, two, make themselves look better to the state of Indiana to, I don't know, try to get more funding for the schools or yada yada. I don't know why people would lie about how good their school is to begin with. I'd be willing to accept the fact that my school is not as good as everybody else's and focus on the stuff that makes us good or try to grow and improve. But, you know, that's very simplistic thinking for me. What else, Middlebury? What other data points have you been changing to make yourselves look better? How many times have you done it illegally? How many times have you done it just unethically? I'll leave you with a statistic as we close today's episode. And this is a number that I'm working to refine. Since the Middlebury Entitlement Schools saga has been dropping on the mic drop, and this is, I think, part 13, there are dozens. That's the metric I'm going to use. Dozens of stories that I've had of children and recent graduates, so recent children, posting on your website asking the same questions that I did that you don't want to answer, asking the same questions that Pam Kaiser asked that you don't want to answer because you think it's inappropriate. All right. With the statistics being so high of kids that have and family members of Middlebury communities that have reached out to me saying that they've been blocked for sharing their truth on your website, when I get that statistic, I'm going to do an entire mic drop on how I created it and show you guys what true statistical gathering looks like for the purposes of truth, not for the purposes of manipulation, not for the purposes of control. Because you deserve it. You deserve to know what's going on behind the scenes and what's going on with your children. And this is the mic drop. My truth is unstoppable because it's mine. You can't change it. You can't control it. You can naysay it all you want, but it's still, you're not. Try to do better than Gantman's doing because he's gotten to maybe kindergarten in his ability to kind of meet with a mature level of being able to disagree respectfully. Where are those stats, Middlebury? It continues to grow every single day. You block people that want to share their truth. Said it before and I'll say it again. Shame on you. Well, we've reached the 3rd-minute mark, so I want to go ahead and call it for now. Thank you very much for listening. This was a mic drop that was very specific towards how data manipulation in Middlebury Entitlement schools has been used to attack and hurt me, and also pose the question on what else it's doing with data manipulation to possibly make themselves look better or, God forbid, hurt your children or families. That's the question I'm asking. That's the entire mic truth drop. And right now, if I get an email response from President Hummel or the board that says we're not going to comment on that because we feel it's inappropriate, I'm not asking. They are. Your community. The people that pay taxes in your town so that you have jobs. Those families, those children, those young adults, they're asking. You continue to shirk your responsibility and not answer them. I'm going to find a way to protect them from you too. Because the community members of Middlebury, the good ones, the ones that are not corrupt or part of the corrupt establishment or the entitlement, they're fighting just as hard, if not harder than I am from the inside to make sure that your children are still safe. That's how I know there are still good people at Middlebury Community Schools. I wouldn't have stayed there so long if there wasn't. I don't think I would have survived that long. I only managed to survive 8 years. So, sorry this one ran a little long. Data is a very important thing. I'm probably going to do some follow-ups on this video. This may be a part 1 because as data manipulation stories come out from people that are going to reach out to me after this one, I'm going to continue to share those truths if they want me to, or they'll be able to share them themselves. So, thank you for listening. This is Mike from the Mic Drop. Every day at 3:45 Eastern, there will be new content, whether it'll be the a mic drop part of the Middlebury Entitlement Saga, or a new saga, or a Mike's Drops from the past. Every day there will be something new for you, because I love you guys. I always have. I haven't stopped. I'm not going to now. It's unconditional. It is 100% free, just because you breathe. Thank you for listening. I know it's not hard to hear some of this stuff, but hopefully this empowers you guys to stand stronger on your own truth. That's how much I love you guys. I'm trying to empower you to fight the fight that you guys should have been fighting and felt empowered to do from the very beginning, and never made to feel weak. And hopefully never made to feel like it was a fight. It should have just been conversations from the very beginning. So, I will stop now. I love you guys, really do. This is Mike for the Mic Drop, and we out.